Abuja.
It's all about the human struggle to raise the level of living. That's what it's all about. I'm Magnus Packle, and this is Magnus Packle GVA. I appreciate you being a part of our show. Is it really a cashless society that we want? Such a society will be very difficult to achieve, as worldwide about 50% of people 15 years of age and over do not even have bank accounts. In sub-Saharan Africa, about 76% of adults have no bank accounts. Indeed, a whopping 87% of adults in the bottom 40% of the population have no bank accounts. In 2011, only about 15% of adults had debit cards in sub-Saharan Africa. You want to guess how many adults use credit cards in sub-Saharan Africa? How about this? Just about 3%. In terms of country comparisons, in Nigeria, up to 70% of adults have no bank accounts. In South Africa, 46% of adults have no bank accounts, while in Kenya, 58% have no formal bank accounts. In Botswana, the number is 70%, like in Nigeria, while 71% of adults have no formal institution bank accounts in Ghana. 45% of adults use debit cards in South Africa, with the sub-Saharan average, as we said, at about 15%. Only about 14% of adults have savings accounts at formal financial institutions in Africa, as many Africans find it easier to use savings clubs, where nearly 20% of adults saved in the past year. For Nigeria, the number is as high as 44% for these savings clubs. Only about 5% of households across Africa get loans from formal financial institutions. In Nigeria, the number is a paltry 2%. It will be quite promoting of economic activity if the people can have greater access to bank loans and also begin to conduct a larger proportion of their transactions electronically. I'm not so sure that we need to set dates when everyone must comply with a cashless society and conduct transactions electronically. Soon, the people themselves will see that it is in their interest to do so. Ages ago, when people converted from trade by barter, they found that it probably did not look very fashionable carrying all your goods around, hoping the carpenter and the cobbler would need them in exchange for their woodwork or services, as the case might have been. In Africa, on average, only 10% of adults use banks to receive their wages, and only about 6% receive government payments with bank accounts. Bottom line, the use of cash is massive in Africa. It will take some time to have a cashless society if that is what many African countries are trying to achieve. Perhaps what we need is a cash-efficient society, because people who use it find that it is the most optimal way to conduct their transactions after considering the risk of robbery and other untoward considerations. It is coming, a cash-efficient society, probably not a cashless society. In view today, Diaspora Waves. But up next in our hidden economics, why do con artists and tricksters go after poorer people? It is very difficult to cheat a rich person. But why is it relatively easier to rob or cheat a poorer person? The reason is simple: education. Yes, education. Many people who are rich got that way because of the skills they have acquired. Good education teaches life skills and other techniques for consolidating assets and being competitive in the global marketplace. People often get robbed or cheated because they did not see it coming. If you understand that it is a trick, you are less likely to fall for it. Ask a boxer who has just gotten knocked out. He won't be able to tell you what happened. All he will know is that people are surrounding him and the fight is over. Well, what happened is that he did not see the punch that knocked him out. It's likely the victor may have shown him a left hook to let him see it. He saw it, braced for it, then an uppercut was connected, which knocked him out because he did not see that one coming. So that's what happened. He did not see the punch that knocked him out. It takes good skills to see hidden punches like that. This is why highly talented boxers with good skills hardly get knocked out. They see the punches. The reggae legend Bob Marley was right after all, when he sang that the destruction of the poor is in their poverty. Poor people often lack the education and the skills to protect themselves from con artists and tricksters. If we want wealth creation for them, we need to first secure and consolidate what they've got in order to be able to build upon it. Our hidden economics for you. The African diaspora, which originated from the transatlantic slave trade of the 16th to the 19th centuries, has grown in modern times to include those who have emigrated from the continent seeking education, employment, and better living overseas. At the EBS, we like to call this new group the Pan Am diaspora. They are believed to have the potential to accelerate Africa's growth and development, which recently have started to turn impressive. We call the original diaspora group that emerged from the slave trade the La Amistad Diaspora Wave, after the motion picture Amistad, which depicted West Africans fighting for their freedom on a slave ship that was taking them to the Americas. The La Amistad diaspora are critical for the final big push that will establish Africa as a significant economic force in the global marketplace. With a growing population and their involvement in politics, business, medicine, and other fields, Africans in the diaspora are making a strong positive impact on Africa's economy. The question this raises is why Africa has not actively engaged its diasporans and given them the support needed to become development drivers for their ancestral homeland. We recently did a show on African generational waves, which focused on young second-wave Pan Am diasporans who are working towards big goals for themselves and who also have a yearning for a deeper connection with their ancestral homeland. For them, regardless of their achievements in their adopted countries, the ability to give back and leverage the benefits of both worlds is a validation of their hybrid status. I had the opportunity to have Her Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Erica Bennett, as my guest in our studios recently. Ambassador Bennett is the convening founder and head of mission of the African Diasporan Forum. She has been very passionate in creating awareness and a platform for diasporans to contribute for Africa. Her hard work has paid off in the endorsement of a diaspora mission by the African Union, which is currently based in Accra, Ghana. Join me in my discussion with Dr. Erica Bennett. But today we want to discuss something that I know is also of great passion to you, something that you've been working on for a long time. I've had the privilege of working with you, talking to you over these many years. That's why I said that you are known as Mama Africa for your passion. But particularly talking and working on the diaspora issue. You've done, what you've done in the area is really extraordinary. I did a show recently that I call the African Generational Waves, you know, where I believe that we have these waves that must set in motion subsequent waves. Luckily, people like yourself have been doing a lot of work trying to leverage the ancient waves. So you've been doing a lot of work in that area. You've worked with African presidents. You've worked with scholars, with various people across the land. You worked with business people. You know, you're a member of the African Business Roundtable and all of that. So I want to see if you could share with us today some of that wealth of experience and all of that that you've been doing. How has it really been with you in all that experience?
Well, first of all, Magnus, let me say congratulations to you. You're the type of diasporan that we're trying to attract.
Thank you.
First of all, you have spent 10 years in Nigeria, coming back, and you've served your country very well. So I want to say congratulations to you. Now, there's two types of diaspora. My group taken from slavery, your group that leave Africa and go away for study, work, or just greener pastures. The Africa Union now understands to move Africa forward, we've got to encourage the participation of the diaspora. Our mission, which is the AU Diaspora Africa Forum, we're based currently in Accra, Ghana. It's the first diplomatic mission of its kind in the world. Our second mission will be here in Abuja. We've already gotten all the protocols signed, and Ambassador Vincent Okobi will be heading that mission for us.
Yes,
we're in the process of getting that set up now.
That's wonderful.
But when people say, well, what do you do with the mission? We're work in progress. Because it's never been done before, it's work in progress. You know, we've done a lot of cultural exchanges. We've done a lot of encouraging diasporians to come home in terms of setting up businesses. And one of the things is that we're not necessarily saying everybody come back, but we're saying everybody look back.
Yes.
There's something that everybody can do when we talk about the development
We got to
of
be able to
Africa.
engage people wherever they are,
Absolutely.
whether they come home or they stay where they are.
And there are millions of us all over the world. I've had the opportunity to go to Brazil, to Europe, all over the world, and there's diasporians there.
Absolutely.
There's Nigerians there who want to come back. They just don't know what to do or how to do it. And so our diaspora embassy, we hope will be able to kind of bridge that gap in terms of really helping make the landing a soft landing for diaspora. You know, Magnus, one of the things that I really want to stress is the fact that the other diasporians, the Indian diasporians, the Israeli diasporians, the other diasporians, they understand the importance of engaging their home countries.
Absolutely.
You see, and they do it in a tremendous way.
Much of the news that you get in the West is about pestilence in Africa, about famine and hunger and HIV, AIDS, and all of these things. But how do we balance the discussion? I imagine that this has not been easy for you, because even just to sell the message back in, say, the United States, to African Americans, to go beyond, to look beyond the headlines that you see in the news and understand the opportunities.
You're absolutely correct. And that's one of the things that we do, is that every year we have a media summit. And the media summit deals with looking at branding Africa, particularly African Americans or Americans generally. When they think of Africa, they think of war, famines, AIDS, and coups.
Yes.
You see, CNN and some of the other countries, that's what they talk about. And that's what we do with the media summits. The media summits is that we look at how do we show the most important and the balance. We're not saying we want people to be publicists for us, but we're saying balance. If you show one side, show the other side. So, and that's the other, I think, the thing that when we talk about the diaspora can really be our number one lobbyist.
Absolutely.
You see, anything that happens in Israel or some of the other countries, their group comes together and talks about it or do what's necessary to make sure that there is a balance in terms of the reporting.
I know, like, some friends that have wondered, will I be able to get a job if I come? What about governance issues? What do they say things particularly about governance, corruption, that they might not be able to fit in? Is there something that you've heard in that regard?
Oh, we hear that all the time. We hear that all the time. But I personally think that is we do have issues in Africa, but I don't think we have any more issues in Africa than we have around the world.
Sure.
If you look at the major nations, there's always corruptions in all of them. China, India, all over the world. So I think that ours is embellished even more. That's what I'm thinking.
The main challenges that they face when they want to look to engage Africa, there are real challenges, significant type challenges that you see that they face?
I think two things. I think one is they get trapped in where they are, with mortgages and school fees and all of these various kinds of things. So that's one of the reasons why we say not necessarily come back, but look back.
Yes.
Like particularly in Ghana, we have some diasporians that build schools, they've built hospitals, orphanages, and we have some that actually contribute $100 every month towards children. So, and it's not a lot of money that Africa needs. And like $100 almost can pay a school fee for a year. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that we encourage diasporians to participate in. There is an interest in terms of dialoguing with the diaspora. I'd like to see more forums. That's one of the things that we're planning to do with the AU Diaspora Forum in the United States, is create forums where these discussions can be held.
Is there something, if there's a message that you wanted to pass on to the average person out there listening to us or watching us, what message would that be?
Well, let me tell you what I say in closing all of my interviews. Yes. You're not an African because you're born in Africa. You're an African when Africa is born in you. I am an African woman.
That's wonderful. Africans in the diaspora are important stakeholders in Africa's development. According to the World Bank, in 2008, they sent remittances of about $20 billion to sub-Saharan Africa. Despite the recent economic downturn, a recent analysis by World Bank experts estimates that remittance flows to Africa dipped only slightly to $19 billion in 2009. The African Development Bank has also recently estimated that Africa as a whole receives about $32 billion annually from the diaspora. And all these are just formal sector estimates, not including remittances that are sent back to Africa through unofficial channels. The World Bank estimates that the so-called voluntary, or what we now call Pan-Am African diaspora, that left Africa after the end of World War II numbers at least 4 million in the West. The population of this group in the United States is now nearly 1.4 million, according to latest figures from the United States Census Bureau. What is really poignant is that significant proportions of this population in the United States and Canada have college degrees, own their own homes, and hold down professional jobs. Consider that the African American population alone is around 40 million, accounting for about 13% of the U.S. population, and with a purchasing power of more than $1 trillion. Now let's look at this. Because without much prodding from African governments and organizations, African American politicians and advocacy organizations have played important roles in galvanizing the United States government to address specific policy issues in Africa. As we all know, the Congressional Black Caucus, African American churches, and civil society organizations throughout the United States played incredible and extraordinary roles in the United States governmental decisions to support majority rule in South Africa. They also played significant roles in the passage of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, to improve access to U.S. markets for textiles and other goods produced by African-based partners, even though Africa has done very little to leverage this. The Congressional Black Caucus made important contributions in the United States government's response when the HIV and AIDS epidemic began to hit Africa. Today, the Congressional Black Caucus continues to help shape U.S. policy towards Africa, being very involved in U.S. government response to the conflicts in Darfur and the Congo. We also see similar kinds of attention from African diaspora members of parliament in the United Kingdom and Canada. African diaspora members from the Caribbean remain proud of their African heritage and are stalwart members of the South-South meetings and collaboration activities. Their governments work closely with African governments in the United Nations and other multilateral agencies. Brazil, the economic powerhouse of Latin America, has a huge African diaspora population, indeed more than 90 million people, constituting the largest concentration of Africans in the diaspora in one country. The effort to scale up the participation of Africans in the diaspora in Africa's development requires a clear and well-publicized strategy that individuals and organizations in Africa can key into. It is necessary to create platforms and mechanisms for engaging all of Africa's peoples in Africa's economic development. We have been evaluating ways to do this at the EBS, and they include designs that identify differential strategies for building awareness and confidence and for shaping focus on key opportunity areas in Africa. Africans in the diaspora will not just one day start trooping into Africa to start jobs. Some people just say, well, in time, these people will start looking or even start coming home. But as Dr. Martin Luther King had said, time is neutral and can be used negatively or positively. Let us be positive on this one. The promise from the diaspora is huge and the potential immense. Let's begin to identify the key nodes for participation in infrastructure development, science and technology, and international brand and market development that the African diaspora can bring to the table. Bottom line, we must engage our Pan Am and La Amistad diaspora populations. They are our lost assets. You simply cannot conclude the puzzle of Africa's economic transformation and ascendancy into preeminence in the global marketplace without them. I'm Magnus Paco, and that's my view.